John here from Great Lakes Country. Something that has driven me crazy for absolutely years is boat covers. Specifically, getting a boat cover secured in place over my boat in such a way that rainwater doesn't collect in some low spot. Of course, this causes the cover to sag even lower and eventually rip, not to mention having to bail out countless gallons of water before I can actually remove the thing. Yeah, there are various ways to try and prevent this, and I've tried them all. Cinching the cover as tightly as possible, concocting all manner of support systems with straps, PVC pipes, and bungee cords. But the only tried and true way to really keep water from pooling on the cover is to eliminate those low points with use of some vertical support. And I've bought various products over the years that accomplish that, but they're basically all some variation of a flimsy pole stuck into a flimsy tripod base with flimsy clamps to keep the pole raised high enough. And I've made them work, but my main gripe about that solution is that it basically requires me to get under the cover after it's already mostly secured in place so that I can push that support pole up as high as possible to ensure a taut, snug slope that rainwater drains off. And at this age, my knees and back are no longer interested in trying to wriggle myself under there at all. So for a while I've been thinking about how I could build a seriously improved, if not ridiculous version of those crappy vertical pole support systems. I envisioned having some sort of electrically articulating pole already under there, which I can control from the outside with some sort of switch or wireless remote. I finally figured out how I wanted to do it and what parts I would need to construct it. And in this video, I'm going to show the build process and demonstration of my all-new boat cover Lifter Upper 5000. And the main ingredient in this contraption is this: an electric linear actuator kit. I found an all-in-one setup that includes a couple of these actuators, though I only needed one for this project, as well as all the controllers, wires, and a wireless remote. Its operation is extremely simple. Press the up button on the remote and the actuator extends. Press the down button and it goes back in. This thing basically already does exactly what I need, and the majority of this build is to simply position it vertically on a very sturdy base of some sort. So I'll quickly go through how I configured and built this whole thing. First, I need to modify some pieces of scrap metal. I'll use this long, narrow steel plate as the base, and I need to drill a few holes in it. Those holes will hold the plate to my 2x4 frame, as well as allow me to bolt the little actuator mounting bracket to it. And to keep the actuator upright and sturdy, I'm attaching a length of angle iron to the base plate perpendicularly. Once I get the actuator mounting bracket in place and the actuator attached to it, I can trace out precisely where I need my angle iron to attach. Then I'll get the actuator and mounting bracket out of there for now, because next we're breaking out the big guns. The best and pretty much only way to attach that vertical angle iron to the horizontal base is to weld it. I am not a particularly skilled welder, and in fact I kinda suck at it. But despite my ugly welds, I can most certainly secure two pieces of steel together with a very strong welded joint. Once the welding is finished and the whole thing is cooled down, I can bolt that base plate to a 2x4, which will make up the center part of the frame. For this, I'm just using some short, fat lag bolts here. Then I'll reattach that actuator mounting bracket. Now to finish up that wooden frame. I want this thing to have a good, wide stance, so there is basically no possible way for the entire thing to tip over while I'm throwing the large, unwieldy boat cover over it. A definite and overkill upgrade to the terrible little tripod bases that the store-bought products come with. So using my handy pocket screw jig and a few short lengths of 2x4, I'll just attach some legs. This thing is now extremely sturdy, so let's attach the actuator and finish it up. First, I'll get the actuator attached to the mounting bracket once again. This just connects using a clevis and cotter pin. And yes, I did Google what the heck that little part is called that the cotter pin goes through. It's apparently called a clevis. Now, using a whole bunch of zip ties, I'll just affix the actuator to my vertical piece of angle iron. And I did drill a bunch of holes in that angle iron through which to run the zip ties, but I didn't film that step because, well, I forgot to. Anyway, I'm sure you get the idea here. Then I'll plug the actuator wire into the controller wire and zip tie all these wires and components neatly to the frame to make sure nothing is dangling or in the way. and it's time to give it all a quick test. And voila, it works. Press a button and the pole goes up. Press another button and the pole goes down. Now there's just one more thing to do. I bought a replacement top cap from one of the brands that makes these boat cover support products, because I do need a nice rounded surface to actually push against that soft boat cover. Though the diameter of the pole opening in this top cap is a bit bigger around than the diameter of my actuator's tube. So I'm using some of this moldable glue to create a perfect fit in there. Basically take this soft, flexible hunk of stuff and smash it all into the opening. I got this multi-pack and I ended up having to use all 3 little pieces to make a big enough hunk to fill up that cavity pretty well. Then I'll simply press the end of the actuator tube into that plug of moldable glue. Once it cures, it'll hold that pole perfectly in place and not allow for any wobbling or wiggling. Now my lifter upper 5000 is completely finished and it's time to put this baby into action. So I'll get the whole thing in place in the back of my boat, right about in the center of where the boat cover wants to sag the worst. And I'll mention that I did end up cutting one of the horizontal legs a bit shorter so the base of this thing could sit just where I wanted it to, without that rear seat getting in the way. Don't worry, it's still plenty sturdy and stable. Then I'll get the boat cover in place, pretty much no differently than I ordinarily would. Cinch down all the ties with some bungee cords, since I really hate the webbed straps that originally came with this cover. Now all I have to do is plug the lifter upper 5000 into an extension cord and press the up button. And success! That worked exactly as I intended. As far as how high to raise it, I just sort of went by feel. I stopped when the boat cover was about as taut as it could go without it seeming like there could be risk of anything tearing. As it turned out, I only really needed to raise the thing up about an extra 8 inches. So in hindsight, I guess I could have bought a shorter linear actuator. But I really like the one I bought because it came with all the controllers and wireless remote and stuff. And most of the products I saw do not come with those things. Anyway, the only thing left is to conduct some vigorous rainstorm testing, utilizing some very scientific simulation technology. As I'd hoped, there is no part of this boat cover that is sagging, and there is no water pooling anywhere. It's running clear off the cover and onto the ground, just like it's supposed to. So there you have it. Yeah, much of this whole thing is just that all-in-one linear actuator kit with wireless remote. But you gotta secure it to something so it stays vertical and can't tip over in any direction. And when employed, the boat cover won't accumulate water, so the actuator doesn't need to hold really any weight from that, but I've got it pushed up pretty tight against that boat cover, and the tension from that does translate to a fair amount of weight sitting on that arm. So a heavy-duty actuator and a heavy-duty frame and vertical support are still a good idea. And now that I've done this, I've already thought of ways I could have probably made the whole contraption a bit smaller and more lightweight, but I don't really need to build another one, and I expect this one will last a very long time. Anyway, that's about it. If you want to make one of these things for yourself, check out the video description below, where I'll put links to the exact products I use to build my lifter upper 5000 boat cover support system. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay up to date with all our latest stuff, including future DIY project videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm John, and this is Great Lakes Country.